Hello, in Malta we're discussing these antique paintings, and what I want to discuss now is the reason people have these oil paintings. And no one ever discusses the reason people have these oil paintings. You can say people need a painting to put on a wall so that they can look at it, or they can buy a painting to fill a blank wall, but that's really not what's going on. So you have the modern collectors, the modern dealers, and you have the modern industry, art industry. But let's go back to the reason people had paintings. I'm not going to go back to the Romans, I'm not going to go back to the medieval time, I'm going to go back to the 18th century. People in England, I'll talk about England, because it relates to the trend which was similar in France and Spain and Italy, and certainly in Christian Western Europe. There was a reason people bought these paintings, and the market was driven by the wealthy people, and that was a combination of regal royal wealth, noble wealth, inherited wealth, church wealth, landowner wealth, farmer wealth, shipper wealth, banker wealth, cleric wealth, physician wealth, scientist wealth. There was a coalescence of wealth, and people wanted to have the pictures, and they didn't buy the pictures just to look at. They didn't buy the pictures just to stick on the wall. There were reasons. I've written the 5 reasons down because I can't remember them. The first reason was, if you had a house, you wanted to show that you had curation, and you wanted to show that you had taste. It's very easy to go, like now, to go to an auction house or a dealer and just buy the first 10 pictures you see, stick them on the wall, but they might not be very nice pictures, but they might have been bought at the wrong price. They might be boring pictures. So people had pictures in their homes in the 18th century in England to show curation. And if you can afford to buy old masters, you can afford to spend a little bit of time picking the right ones. And if you were well connected, you would have the right suppliers. So by having a curated collection, you were showing you had the time to buy the right ones. You were showing you knew the right dealers. And the right dealers will save the best things for their best clients. So, for example, the Duke of Bedford was offered the 3 Graces by Canova. And of course, he will be famous, not for being the Duke of Bedford, he will be famous for owning the 3 Graces, one of the 3 Graces. So the collections showed the curation and the patronage of the owners of the houses, owners of the collection, and they were trying to show they were knowledgeable. They didn't just want to go down to the shop and buy the pictures, stick them on the wall and say, these are my pictures. They wanted to show they knew what they were buying, understood them, appreciated them, and they were wanting to show that they had this curation. The other reason, well, one of the other reasons is they wanted to display their wealth, and that's fairly obvious. It's like a man nowadays will have an 8-car garage with 8 Rolls Royces in it. It's the 18th century version of that type of thing. Or if you have a Sunseeker now, 300 years ago, you'd have a old master painting. Another aspect, in the 18th century, people would go on house parties, and they would be invited to go for dinner, and the dinners would be elaborate, and they would last for hours, and there would be a convention when they arrive, when they leave. And in many of these houses, if you're in the rural parts of England, the house party would be 4 days long. There would be a day where you go, there would be 2 or 3 meals a day when you leave. Your servants would get there before you get there, your luggage would get there before you get there if you were a visitor. And there would be sport, there would be discussion, there would be worship, there would be shooting, there would be eating and drinking, of course. And after a meal, a visitor might say to the landowner, can I see your paintings? And that might seem a strange thing now, but it would be a routine thing, and the owner of the house would be insulted if you didn't ask to see his paintings. And you see in some big houses in England, you have these cupboards. They have them in Italy and Malta as well, where they have all the little drawers, and there were collections of precious stones and shells and precious objects, and the owner of the house would have a collection, and he would want to show off his collection to his visitors, and the visitors would ask to see, and that wasn't considered rude, and they would discuss the objects, and they would say, the owner would say, well, I bought this from Doodah Doodah, it's from this era, it's come from Greece, it's come from Italy, it's come from Rome. And they would talk. There was no television, there was no radio, and that was their entertainment. And yet the last aspect of owning these pictures is the aspect of custodianship, where if you had a inherited estate in England, or you were rich, or you had become rich, you would own these possessions, and you would look after them for the next generation. And if they'd been handed down to you from the previous generation, you would try to keep them and look after them. And in England in the mid 20th century, because of the Liberal left governments, a lot of the estates sold their pictures because the death duties were so high that in order to keep the land, the heirs or the landowners in anticipation would sell the contents so that it was cash to pay the tax, so that the inheritors could keep the land, which was considered more important than the objects, the movable objects. And so there's this aspect of custodianship, because the item will survive beyond the lifespan of the notional owner of the time. So when you see these houses with pictures in, there's a lot going on. There are many more dimensions than we are aware of now. And many modern collectors, serious collectors, do understand this, but the layman doesn't understand it. They see an antique shop full of pictures, and they think, well, that will go in that room because it's yellow. That will go in that room because it's got some blue. But there's a lot more. That accounts for the seriousness of the trade and of course the high values associated with the trade. Thanks for looking.